The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marina Sprocki, and I'm the host of Always Another Way podcast. I have a master's in professional counseling. I'm the IPPY Award-winning author of Stop Looking for a Husband, Find the Love of Your Life, and Nasty Divorce, A Kid's Eye View. I write positive divorce advice for the HuffPost, and I'm trained in clinical hypnosis. And this podcast speaks to out-of-the-box thinkers, and it's for those who hear the call of hope and always another way. And if you're very rigid and set in your beliefs, this is probably not your cup of tea. However, you should note, tastes can and do change. And I just want to thank all of you for listening. Today we are on episode 91, so getting super close to 100. So there are 90 other episodes besides this one today that's going to be amazing, of inspirational things that you can listen to. And if you haven't yet, on your phone or on your computer, get to your podcast app. Search for Always Another Way. There are 2 L's in always because all things can be done another way. And hit that subscribe button. And if you have an extra moment, I would love it if you were to rate or write a review, because the more people that do that, the more it pushes it up in the ratings and the more people that can hear all of this amazing information. Likewise, if you like any episode, hit share. Go ahead and text it or email it to a friend. See if you can help them out. So today, I'm going to kind of roundabout this. First, I want to talk about a little bit just about customer service in general. And if you are a human out in the world, you go to places, and you may note, sadly, sometimes I think you go to places, they don't look you in the eye, customer service sucks, you're waiting around, and, businesses come and go. On the other hand, there's a book I read. It's called Hug Your Customers by Jack Mitchell, which is an amazing, amazing book on business. And he doesn't mean just, it's not all about physically hugging, but it's an excellent book on what makes actually a long-lasting business. And they are third-generation family-run business, which they're very, very rare to be profitable. So my next guest, I met her 15 years ago. I had a friend who, I had a different monetary lifestyle then, but she always looked like super good. And I was like, oh, your hair looks so good. And she's like, oh my gosh, you have to go to this place. It's the best blowouts ever. And maybe I knew what that was, but I grew up in Ohio, and, you're like, what's a blowout? You're like, oh, makes your hair like it does right now, look really smooth and beautiful. So I started going to the salon, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody here is really good. They're like, it doesn't matter who you go to, you can get, and there was these blow dry cards, so you could get, you get a little bit of a deal. So, a couple times a week, I'm getting my hair done. It looks really good. So maybe like a year goes by, and then I become friends with the owner, and then almost everybody at the salon, because they're so friendly. I mean, they talk to you, and it really makes you feel like, kind of like family when you go in there, and there's, coffee and drinks, and it's real nice. Well, I get this gift basket, and I bring it home, and my husband was like, he's like, you got a gift from a hair salon? I was like, yeah. And he's like, how often do you go there? I was like, well, a lot. But anyways, so my guest is the owner of this salon, and she is a super badass, not just a very just kind an amazing human being, but a businesswoman like no other. So let me tell you about Deanna DiPizio-Johnson. And there is a reason why her clients return again and again to Salon Pompeo. It's Dallas's premier full-service salon, and the creator and founder, Deanna, her artistic vision and shrewd business sense She has a unique idea for honest client relations. That's what drove this Buffalo, New York native to open up her first salon location in Dallas's McKinney Avenue in 1995. The success of Salon Pompeo can be attributed to Deanna's eye for talent and her knack for instructing new stylists. Assistants who have trained under her have gone on to have their own successful careers. They credit her toughest nails approach as something that drives them to do their best. DiPizio-Johnson is well known for her charity involvement, and one of the events closest to her heart is the annual Children's Cancer Fund Fashion Show. Her staff and Deanna truly believe that it's one of the greatest events they're involved in each year. She has always believed in paying it forward, and she's proud that she can mentor her staff to share in this belief. Along with being a successful businesswoman, Deanna shares her busy life with her husband Jared and their 2 young children. And in fact, no business endeavor has ever challenged her or rewarded her like being a mom. And she says that becoming a mother has been the single most amazing thing that she's ever done. So welcome to the show, Deanna.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
I could cry and you're talking about me.
I know, because it's so wonderful,
Well, it is, having children is the hardest and yet most rewarding, right?
And nobody tells you that when you
No.
get one. They're just like, oh, yeah, you're just going to take them around and bring
And
your
it's going to
wallet.
be great and you're going to totally know what you're doing. The start of Pompeo was like my child for so long.
Yeah.
Then you have a child and then you're like, oh, this is nothing comparatively speaking, right?
Yeah, well, come on now, girl.
Well, it becomes gut. It comes from your gut. I feel like you kind of got to believe in you and then figure it out. And I think that's business and raising children is all the same.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So from the very beginning, you were 21 years old, and decided to move to New York City because you've got this vision. Like, and hopefully I'm not the only one when I say this, but I was like drinking and doing nothing.
Well,
when I was 21, I'm like, and how were you just like, yeah, I think I'm just going to run this place?
Well, the first thing I did, I moved to New York and I got additional advanced training because I was in Buffalo, which is a super small town, had my hair license, and I moved to New York and I got trained by Jingles International, who they were trained from Vidal Sassoon. So there's kind of 2 theories of doing hair.
Yeah.
And after I moved back home to see, and I was like, oh no, I know how to do all these great things and no one is going to pay for it here.
Yeah.
And then you realize I had friends that lived in Dallas and I came to spend a summer. Like I never thought anything of it. I really didn't have that much vision.
Oh, okay.
I wish I didn't at that time. And they were clerks, they were lawyers, right? They just got a law, so they had 0 time to hang out with me. Seriously, quite honestly. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just get a job. We'll figure it out. And I did. My first job, I worked for L'Entourage, which is no longer in business. Jan Furr, she was amazing. And just women are beautiful in Dallas. Like, I love Dallas. I get very frustrated when people say, there's no mountains, there's no water. No, this is like the greatest city. It's in the center of the country. You can get anywhere you need to be, and people are beautiful. Like,
They really are.
they just really are.
They like to dress up and look good.
So for my business, it was all a big plus, right? I was like, I worked for her for a couple of years. I really enjoyed working at L'Entourage. I really understood everything that was happening. And then all of a sudden, the business wasn't working out for her. And it had been like a long time, like 15 or 16 years. So that's when I realized I went around and looked at, and I couldn't find the vibe.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's something about the vibe that is created from the owner on down.
Oh, hell yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does.
And there's a way to
Yeah.
be professional and fun. And I couldn't find that. Like, it was either super uptight or there wasn't really loud music, or I didn't feel the salon environment was any of them. I couldn't find anything at the time. So there was a couple guys that I said, let's go and do this together. And they were like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, great. So then I found a place, and then they were like, listen, we'll work for you. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, okay, you can do this and we'll work for you. And I was like, okay. And so my girlfriend that was a lawyer, she started out with me.
Nice.
Yeah. And we, the first.
And were you scared, like, oh my God, like if I do this? Or you just like didn't think that?
I really did. I was too young and not smart enough to know any better, So I do say, like, sometimes when you're a true entrepreneur, like, you really don't understand, like, no's not an option. right?
like it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, what are they going to take? I mean, they made me personally guarantee the space. So looking back, I was like, this is not very smart now. But back then I was like, what are they going to take? My leased Ford Explorer? I mean, I live in an apartment. I have no money, right? Like nobody, right? Okay, great. Let me sign,
Let's
and
do
I
it.
guess you're so young, you don't know any better, right?
Which,
Sometimes,
hey, works.
Worked out long term.
Okay, so you get there, you're doing it, and does it just like, does it take off from the get-go, and how, you know, how all that went? And
It really did really well at the beginning because I think people like new things.
yeah.
The biggest challenge was probably, I kind of had a lot of time of free rent. I do remember that. And then it was like month 6, we were going to have to start paying, you know? And it was really strange. Month 5, like a salon closed and like 6 hairdressers came to me at the same time. Like I always believe there's an outside force that makes you work, you know, or it makes it not work for you. And it's showing you this is not going to work, you know, or this is really going to work. And I think right at that cusp of time when I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? It worked out. I went really far for like the next 5 to 7 years were really strong. And then I do find this, I think somewhere between 7 to 10 years, you have to start reinventing yourself every 5 years.
Yeah.
Because now you're Salon Pompeo, you've been here forever, you know, and like you have to figure it out. Who we are now is not who we were when we started, ever. I mean, I've learned a lot from my husband, who is way smarter than me. We're open 7 days a week. I didn't even fathom I could do that, run that operation. I don't do hair.
And pretty smart too, because sometimes like before, like salons were always closed like Sunday and Monday, and you're like, sometimes I need my hair done on a Monday or a Sunday.
Yeah, and we are open full days, Sunday, Monday, 9 till 6. Like it's totally, there's times when it's hard to get staff to work, but the young, hungry ones realize that on Sundays, it's a good day.
Yeah.
That's when lawyers come in and doctors and people that have high-end jobs that cannot come in during the week.
Yeah.
They just can't make it happen. And stuff like that you learn, like we have to adjust our business for the client as opposed to we're working for ourselves. And I do feel like the next generation, that might be the most difficult thing for me.
Right.
Trying to get the right people. But I do feel like every 5 to 7 years, we totally reinvent ourselves. We have a cafe now, which, again, people are like, what do you know about coffee? And I was like, nothing. I know nothing about coffee, but it can't be that hard, right? It can't be that hard. Let's figure it out. And we use local roasters and you figure it out.
I love it that you're trying to, and okay, now let's talk about, so in that thing, but what was the blowout that you decided, like, I'm just going to like, and not that you don't do everything else well, but like, there's no other place in Dallas where you can just go to anybody, even like the high rent, like super high rents where like, it's going to be like every single person. It does not matter who it is. You go to Salon Pompeo and that's what I do. I'm like, who's there at 4? Because I'm time-based. I'm like, I just need to know who's there at 4, who's there at 2, who's there at what. Anybody. I mean, anybody.
Well, let me say I couldn't hold a brush when I moved to Dallas. Seriously. I didn't
Really?
I didn't even know. I didn't understand that whole blowout. And I worked with some phenomenal hairdressers and I was like, wow, this is just so interesting, I do make sure that everyone knows how to do a blowout, and their big joke is the Deanna way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's why I like it.
I feel like I've gotten it down to a science, and when you have a girl that works for us, I always say to them, "You're a female. It's easier for you to blow dry hair because you have to perfect your own."
Oh yeah.
And if you can perfect your own, you can do anyone else's. You're standing behind them. I said it's always easier for women than men. Men is twice as hard because most of them don't have hair or it's super short. It's just, I do find that anything you do in life, there's just a method. And if you kind of stick with it, we're going to always have perfection. I do tell people that the only time the method doesn't work is when you try to skimp the method or scrimp.
Yeah.
And why do,
Half-ass.
Yep. Why do a half-assed job when you can do it right the first time? I mean, I am a big advocate of that. My husband will tell you, like, there's everything's got to be in one place, or I do have that kind of organizational. And if you kind of do something and you skip a step, I'm like, what's the point in that? Why are you doing that? Like, do the best you can. Always, charge the least amount you can and over deliver. That's how you make a customer,
Which is and also it's that's the product.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
like
So,
they're walking around town and telling people to come to you. You kind of want them to look their best.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that I try to you teach your client how to do their hair. A lot of people can't afford blowouts, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Ours are always included too. That's another thing. I always found that strange. Like, you'd let people leave with wet hair.
I know.
Why would you
I went
do
to a
that?
place like that once, and I'm like, I can't see what it looks like after you colored it.
Right? Why would you charge more to give them what they should look like? They don't know what they should look like when they leave.
Yeah. Right.
Right? I mean, they obviously can't do their own hair. Let's hope not. You
Yeah.
know. So it's kind of one of those weird things that you learn. You really have to just do the best for your clients that you can and listen.
And that's another thing I really like too, like that everybody's just so really friendly and engaging, and you have, and Deanna also has, and this is a true test of if you've been to any business or if you've ever worked with somebody that sucks. Likewise, how long do they last? Or you go to a company, you're like, why is everybody leaving here? And you're like, people only work here for like 5 months. I've worked for a couple of those places. And then you're like, oh yeah, because the top sucks. But there are people, and there's one guy, especially like when I first started going there 15 years ago, he was at the front desk, and there's many people that are still there that I know, multiple people from 15 years ago.
Yes.
Which is a true testament to you.
Well,
You know that.
That's super kind. I mean,
That's the truth, though. For sure.
I believe maybe it takes a team.
Yeah.
You really have to know. You have to know what's going on inside people. I do. It's one of those things that I do have. Who runs the back end? Her name's Carly, and she has been with us, I think, 14 years. She'll correct me when I get back, but she said, you have this way to figure it out, like, because I always say, what do they need to work? What do they need? I don't know. Like, people don't know. And I'm like, we need to know what their situation is. I feel like you always need to know people's situation, because if you know their situation, it's just so much easier to work with them. You know, I think people inherently want to make you happy, whether it's your children or your employees or anyone else, right? But life happens, right?
For sure.
So I always tell people, just please be super honest with me, and I'll be super honest with you. I mean, because one day this year, you're going to have a hangover, okay? And I want you to call me and say, I can't come to work, I'm still drunk, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Do not lie to me, because that won't work out well. I'm like, it happens, right? People make poor choices, and then weird things happen.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't have a relationship and make it work, right?
Do you know how mature that is? Like, and big, just to be like honest, because life does happen.
Life happens, and it's hard when it happens, right?
But you recognize it and aren't like trying to power trip or do something else weird around it.
Well, I hope not.
No, that's super cool. Well, and then you have better relationships when you're honest.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I always say, come talk to me. Just call me, tell me, And, there's a lot of people that don't make it. I mean, I make people work really hard. I do.
Yeah,
I
so
really make people work
Let's talk about
hard.
that, like the tough as nail stuff. Tell me, like, what drives you behind that and why? I mean, I know there's a reason, but.
Well, I feel like, at the end of the day, I always tell people, maybe Pompeo might not be forever for you, but it was my grandfather. So, it's forever for me.
Yeah.
And so I want you to treat every client like it's forever. I don't, I've had hairdressers work for me for 6 to 7, 8 years. I have a hairdresser who's been with me 18 years right now. And if they get it and they get the theory, we're great. Most of the turnover is in the first year.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because people just can't see the goal or figure out how to get there, or lack of ambition, instant gratification. It's really hard right now with young people.
Yeah.
I feel like, I love to hate social media, I'm sure you do too. It's hard. It's like really hard to teach your children, and it's hard to teach yourself. I mean, there's times when I'm like, oh my God, I got to shut my phone off. Like, I'm obsessing over what's not even real.
Yeah.
Right?
And when it's proven like that behind, how they make all those apps, like behind Vegas, like why you keep doing this, like it's truly addictive. Like, I
Right.
mean, even I know, I'll be like, what the fuck am I, like I've seen these people and that same shit. I don't need to keep looking, but.
Right. But you can't help yourself, right?
Yeah.
But a part of being good at business or anything else is having that addictive personality, which I may have hugely. You know what I mean? So
Harnessing it.
Can't help myself. I walk in the door and I say, like, every single person should feel like it's your best friend on the other end.
Yeah.
And when people don't answer the phone, it's me, and I'm like, no, it's your best friend on the other end.
Yeah.
That's the way life is, and people come places where it is to get to know people. No one really wants to sit behind this phone. Do you think they want to sit behind this phone?
Right.
No, we feel awkward within ourselves. So the salon is always, the one thing I have always done is make it to be interactive, and I didn't really realize that till the guy who builds them out. Like every 5 years, we kind of change the entire interior. He's like, you're all about people having to communicate. I'm like, really? And I didn't realize that. The first thing I did was a blow dry table. So when you had color on, you would sit at this huge, massive table, and the dryers would come down, and you'd have 5 to 7 people sitting around. And that was
I remember
15 years ago. We don't even have the table anymore. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, because I feel like people just want to talk to people.
They do.
Like, not everybody wants to sit with their computer. And a lot of the salon has a full bar around it, because you talk to the front desk, and I always tell them, just say, hey, how's your weekend going, or whatever. I said, well, they're on their phone. I'm like, people are on their phone because they feel insecure.
Yeah.
Because no one's saying a word to them, so they're scrolling social. They don't want to scroll social media. Let's all be honest. Who wants to sit and scroll social media for hours, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And it's so amazing, because it is those conversations that people will tell me on the street all the time. You have the nicest front desk.
You do. I mean, we became friends, like, for me just going there.
Right. And I didn't do your hair until you were like, I'm like, who is that girl? She's been here forever, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it always works, right?
Yeah.
Or I meet people on the street. Yesterday, someone said hello to me, and I had no idea who they were. I was at the salon, and I asked one of the girls, she's like, you met her somewhere. She's been coming because of you. And I was like, oh,
cool.
Because, I met her probably for 2 seconds, but she was just so lovely. And she was like, she's one of my favorite clients. And, that's just a good feeling, right?
For sure. For sure. So now in all this good stuff, like, was there ever a time where you just, like, did anything happen that you're just like, oh no, this is like dicey, or just like, I'm over it. Like, I've been doing it for so long. Like, any of those moments where you're just like, or just
no,
what kind of trouble?
Yes. I mean, there's always super big reinventions, right? I mean, and I think those are all signs, and they happen for a reason, right? I'm at that probably cusp now where I have I don't do hair. I mean, I do. I have 2 clients that cannot let go. Really, just 2. And neither of them I'm married to, so I don't even cut my husband's hair. I'm children sometimes. And I feel like my daughter's in middle school, my son's in 3rd grade. I'm trying to lead people in the direction, like, listen, this is the greatest thing we started. And we started it all together, right? It takes a team, and trying to give them more authority. Like, it's not about X, Y, and Z. It's about you carrying on the legacy. Like, let's figure out what you can do so I can be here less. What are mandatory of me, period. But beyond that, let's trickle it down. So I feel like I have a really great staff right now that understands that. There's definitely moments you want to throw your hands up and you get yourself in a corner and you're like, what am I going to do? But, no, it's just never an option.
And that's your thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, I don't know what that is, My husband always says, like, he could have a piece of paper and run all the numbers for 40 minutes and my answer is right, even though I never ran them. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's just instinctual or how it happens.
Yeah.
My dad was a builder, so I'm very visionary.
Yeah.
The office in the salon looks crazy, it's all pictures and whatever, and I'm very visionary. I can see anything when I walk in a room. I never forget where we've been or what it looks like.
And you have very good aesthetics too.
And that kind of makes it for the entire atmosphere, right? Because I always try to tell people that work for us, it doesn't matter what happened to you today. They've been waiting 8 weeks to come in and get their hair done.
Yeah, right?
It's about them today. No one wants your hairdresser to be like, even if you had the worst evening and blah, blah, blah. No, people come to feel good. So try to check yourself, because things happen, and try to be the best you can be every day.
Right?
Not just once in a while, because you might not see that person for 8 more weeks. Like, try to get it together every day. You know, it's, yes, we have off days. I'd rather you take off than have an off day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And then also maybe I think sometimes when you're just like, and it's like almost a force get out of the mood, but even if you just marinate in that, that's rumination. That's not good for you.
Right.
And focusing on somebody else is usually a good way to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm out for something else.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of reason why we work as women, isn't it? Instead of, I mean, there's a lot more gratification in raising children when you have something else you do that's gratifying.
For sure, for
Right?
sure, for sure, for sure. And I know, like, I started out, you know, just being like a stay-at-home mom, and that's not like, and not to poo-poo anybody that does, like, whatever your choice is. And some people, like, I mean, my mom, like, that was her wheelhouse of like getting into all those things. You know, I needed to do something else as well. And let's talk about that. Back to you. So you have a daughter, and that, but just like from a young age, you've been just like a super go-getter. Like, how amazing that is for her to see, like, and for your son too, this woman who's like, you're a badass, you know?
Well, you're super, super sweet. I do, you know, have these weird sayings or things that I know, and I always like say, you know, lazy doesn't live with me. You know, I tell the kids, like, lazy doesn't live with me. Lazy doesn't work for me. You
That's
know?
good, right?
Because, well, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's nothing you can't do or be. I don't know where I really got that from. You know, my dad is super hard worker, but I wouldn't.
Like, did your parents kind of influence you to do that? Were they just like, yeah, you could do whatever you want?
I mean, I guess kind of. You know, I mean, my whole family still works for my dad.
Yeah.
Except me. So I don't really know. You know, I do feel like, you know.
And was there any, like, just not to jump off there, was there any, like, you need to work for the family?
Oh, well, yes, there was always that pressure, and like, how could you leave Buffalo?
Okay.
I mean, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for you, right? And you're like, no, I need to leave.
But how did you okay, let's sort of segue into that. Like, I had a little bit of that, like, who leaves this, like, Columbus, Ohio? And I was like, I'm going to New York City, peoples.
Yeah, I got to
You know,
roll.
but it was hard.
It is hard, but I just, you know, a 21-year-old punk, right? You know what I mean? I mean, you have to
And
have
it
some of that
changed your life.
grit, right? You change your life, and I tell my kids now, and you'll love this. You are not even applying to colleges in Texas. There's an entire world out there, and you're going to see it.
I love that.
You're going to figure it out. Like, I love how people love Dallas. I really do. And I'm so blessed by this city. But for me, Dallas was like huge. I came from a tiny little town, you know, but there's moments when, you know, my kids are little. So they're like, I just might want to go to TCU or be an Aggie. Or like, no. None of that's happening ever. Because I think we sell ourselves short on not believe. What's the worst thing that can do?
Not getting outside of your zone.
Yes,
You know what
I mean, you try and you fail, so you try again. The failure's not an option, right? It's never an option. It's just another avenue for you to try something different, right? If you keep failing at something, okay, so try something else. But it's not failure, right? It's growth.
Yeah,
I don't think you should. Yes, I mean, because most days is filled with failure.
For sure.
Right? I mean, that's why winning feels so good. Okay. I mean, and I have a daughter who wants to be an actress, which we slightly talked about. And I mean, she's maybe filmed 80 things this year, right? And 80 things of on-air auditions or whatever. And she hasn't gotten anything in a really long time. And she was like, Mom, I just, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's not a numbers thing. Like, it's when the right thing happens is when you're on. And, you know, she got a commercial last week and was like, oh, well, does that count? Like, I'm like, yes, it counts. But, you know, it's so funny because she's just as hard on herself as I am as a person. But I always tell her, like, you'll never lose if you just don't quit.
Right?
You can't lose if you quit. You know, quitting is losing, period.
That's the total truth. And what a good message. And I told you, I want to be your daughter because I wanted to be an actor. And my dad was like, you'll never make money in that. You're not going to do that. But I was like, oh, people do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but that message of just like, don't quit and keep going because that's the truth. Always another way for a freaking reason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is. There's just always, and when something is totally not working, I think it isn't working that much because it's a message for you to understand. Like, I think you just have to wake up and go, this is not working. Right. And yes, I've been there. I've been there breaking points, right? I mean, we had a total staff turnaround after 15 years. You know what? It was time.
Yeah.
It was time, you know, and that happens. But that doesn't mean, I mean, I even closed one late one night and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? You have 2 little kids at home, but sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
You're getting a message from somewhere that you need to take it back. You're losing some kind of ownership or whatever. You know, I just feel like I'm at that point where I just want a guide now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't go without saying that my hand isn't in it every day going, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. You know, like we need to do this. And, you know, I just feel like every client is an opportunity to make a friend or understand people, because I feel like communication is at its all-time low right now in society, right?
Real communication.
Real communication. Yeah. Like I just learned something about you 10 minutes ago that from another friend of mine that I didn't even know you knew, right?
Yeah.
And we've known each other 15 years, and it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know, you know? I think that happens because we all get sucked up in our worlds of,
for sure, of just
whatever that is.
this and that. And it's more, and isn't it more fun to just like know and really connect with people? And it's true that like most people, aside from like suicide being astronomically high, second leading cause of death for children aged 13 to 21, which is really bad, but then 5 for adults, and then loneliness as people get older sucks. And then people that are alone in groups of people. But to be connected, like in a world, and for you to facilitate that.
Well,
is cool.
The statistics on children are just amazing, right? I mean, because when we grew up, they weren't that at all, right?
No.
So we've turned into this entire. Their brain isn't big enough or mature enough to understand, right? I've just completely taken. My daughter doesn't have a phone, and she's probably the only 6th grader without a phone, you know? And I was like, it's not a thing.
Good for you.
You know, it's just not a thing. You don't need a phone. Wherever you are, where you're dancing, acting, at school, there's a landline. Yeah. I will get you
or somebody's got a phone.
Somebody's got a phone. I'm like, I'll get you a flip phone. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't have a problem with you calling me, communicating with me, or texting. But everything beyond that is too difficult. It's too hard for, and I said to her, you going to be famous one day? This was like 2 weeks ago. And she said, yes. I said, you don't want any of this following you. I don't care what anyone says to you.
Yeah.
But whatever you put there is there permanently. Well.
Yeah, that's right. That's a hard lesson. Like we didn't have that growing up, thank God.
No. And we didn't work in real time, right? Mm-hmm. You found out you went to school on Monday.
Yeah.
And then you found out there was a party you weren't invited to on Sunday. Well, how mad could you be?
Right.
It wasn't live time, right? You were like.
For like a half a second.
Yeah, you're like, oh, they were mean to me. They didn't invite me. My feelings are hurt. But it's live time now. I mean, they're snapping their pictures at the party that you didn't get invited to. And, you know, you're 12 years old and 15. You can't, your brain cannot, I'm 40. I have friends that have told me Facebook hurts my feelings. And I'm like, I get it, girl.
Yeah.
And you're 40.
Right.
What do you think it's doing to our girls and kids and boys? And it's a lot.
And and that really takes a big adult to know that, because like I caved into like and sometimes I see and I'm like, you're on that. Wait, I can be the adult and slack it away, but that's so good. So of like all this but good advice, like what do you think are some? I mean, I like your 2 things, but like the best stuff that you've learned, like from doing this, from hustling to the business, from being a parent, being a woman, also like in business, doing that. What are some like top things you've learned, or anything that you want to tell people, like, here's some good advice?
Don't ever worry about what anyone else is doing. It doesn't matter. Ever, in any form, way, or do what feels right for you, you know? And I tell staff that too. Like, if you no longer want to be at Pompeo, then you shouldn't be here. Yeah. Because, maybe I'm just part of your journey and not your big journey. And yesterday I read something on Facebook, and it was a shout out from an old stylist, and I thought that was just great, and I sent her a positive message. I was like, thanks for, mentioning that we were part of your journey. And I feel like that about a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Do what feels right till it doesn't anymore. And sometimes something's just not part of your journey. It's time for it to be over, whether that's, a relationship, a job, a friendship, when it doesn't make you feel good, you got to go.
Right?
Right?
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay to fail, because life is really about failure. I promise, like most lessons are from failing.
Yeah, true.
That's why winning feels so good. It doesn't happen very often, right?
Yep.
Really,
true.
It just doesn't. And you talk to women all the time in difficult marriages or they have great ideas and they just don't know. I'm like, what's the worst thing? You fail? Who cares? No one really cares. So I really find that it's our mind.
Yeah.
And all the media and networking and everything makes you think people care. People are genuinely way nicer than you think.
For sure. I
Right?
think so too.
They
Yeah.
really want you to succeed. People don't want you to fail,
Right?
right? I just believe in you to know that it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. If you really believe in your thing, you'll figure it out. Look at yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I didn't know I'd still be here doing hair or teaching hair or any of that. Like I said, five years ago, I was like, we stop sending people across the street to buy Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
We should open a coffee shop. I mean, they were like, are you insane? I'm like, no, we're in the bottom of a hotel. There's no grab and go.
Right?
Let's just figure it out, and they called the health department, they laughed, and I was like, well, that's not acceptable. We'll figure it out. And,
And you got a coffee shop.
You figured it out. And now we have a health license and in a hair salon. Yes.
And you have clothes too.
Yes. We have a boutique too.
Yeah.
Because people were always like coming from the hotel going, do you have? And I've learned as I've aged, right? Because none of this was your vision. So you have to learn to grow with your community too. I mean, that's definitely, you have to do what your clients are asking.
Yeah.
We just started online booking and I was very adverse to it. I'll tell you why.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like you cannot get the proper stylist via an app at all, right? So, but there is a next generation that makes me old and they have to use their phone.
Yeah.
They have to. They just don't even fathom the idea that I would want you to call.
Talking to
And I want you to call because if you're new, I want to feel you out. Like I'm always like, if she's an SMU girl, give her to somebody that's young and fun. And,
Yeah.
you can't do that on an app, right? So we opened it up to blowouts because we know that everyone can do that.
That's right.
And haircuts only. It has really done a lot. Like I'm shocked. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it also has the positives as it freed up the front desk people to talk to the people in the salon.
Yeah.
So they're not always answering the phone. And the younger people, I feel like there's a big influx of younger people coming back that we weren't getting. Like,
She's online now. We can do
yeah,
it.
it's now online. It's like, okay, but you have to change with your environment.
Which that's really good. I mean,
Yeah.
to be flexible, to not just stuck because you.
Well, otherwise you
dinosaurs.
get old, right? So that's kind of how the boutique started. It was like, I'm really into fashion. So like, why aren't we selling things? We have all this space, right? And people are just milling around and everybody always wants something. And then when I had children, like you do, and you work, you have zero time for yourself.
Right.
So that's when it was like, okay, if I can grab a cup of coffee and get my hair done and grab a sweater, it's just mostly grab and goes.
Yeah.
And we work under a certain price point. We try to keep everything under 100. Like that's the safe zone, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because then sometimes you're like, oh, I need to go out. I got my hair done. But,
Right.
Oh, something cute.
Right. So that's how it worked. And now it's like a big part of our income. So strange. I'm going to Vegas with Carly in the office, which she hates shopping, but someone's got to monitor me. So. And she's, I don't know, 18 years younger than me. So she gives that whole cusp of that age group.
Yeah.
Where I can buy for my age group, and
Right.
I'm usually like, no one's wearing that, and she's like, no, we need to get that. I'm like, okay, because I'd say our client is 20 to 60, which is a huge span,
Right.
But we have 21 chairs, so you have a huge span of what's going on at the same time. So we go together, and we're going to Vegas, and like I can't even believe that we've been that successful at this, that we go and buy once a year, and like real buyers. And how did I learn that? No idea. Do you know what I mean? It's like another one of those things that we're like in the process, like, let's figure this out. Like, how are we going to be buyers? Like, how are we going to do this? And we just did.
That's so cool. I mean, and that's just so awesome. And proven point done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's been failures, I mean, there's been some stuff we bought that we were like, ooh, that was a bad idea. Nothing horrible, but you just kind of learn. You got to talk to your clients and you figure it out. And now we have people that shop with us a lot, and it's kind of funny. Like, or a blogger will blog, like, I got this cool dress at Pompeo, and like, yes, it's a hair salon. Like, yes.
But you got good style.
Yeah, but then you understand how it works,
Yeah. So what's next for you? Like, you have other things on the horizon, like for Pompeo, just for you in general, like what's on your radar?
I don't know. I feel like more fashion. I am really enjoying that. I like to mentor people too. More than just beside ourselves, or to get bigger to the community, or give back, or in some way. We've been with Children's Hospital a really, really long time, and of course, kids are so close to my heart. And sick kids, it's just a punishment. Like, I don't understand any of that, but I do feel like there's. I never went to college.
Which also proves, like, just
it's
FYI,
like,
you don't need to go, like, education
No.
is not just in a school that you
No.
pay money. It is absolutely not, because,
Yeah, I mean,
Hello.
school hard knocks, right? So I never went to college.
well, but I mean, but doesn't mean you're not smart or didn't learn, like, other stuff, business and otherwise. I mean,
Right.
like, a ton of stuff.
Well, totally believe that.
And real life.
Anybody can learn anything they want to if you really want to, right? You
That's
can
for
figure
sure.
it out.
Yeah.
I do have moments that you look back in life and you remember someone saying something to you and you're like, what?
What did somebody say to you?
Well, I remember like saying why, and this is so naive and young. I remember like, why would someone be a garbage man? Like, and when I was dating this guy way long ago, and he was like, this is one of those moments that you don't understand your even worth of your brain. Like, for him, maybe that's a huge step up,
Yeah.
right? For his family, maybe they didn't have anything. And
And
like,
who's going to do it?
so I always, so I always look at it that way. I'm always like, my dad was an outside laborer. I just moved inside.
Yeah.
Right? I was a hairdresser, right? He was a contractor, so he was an outside laborer. And I always think like generational wise, like, again, no, I don't want you to go to school in Texas. I want you to think bigger. Like, I want you to see the world. I want you to, you got to push people to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And failure's okay, because it's going to happen, and then figure out how to get out of it, right? So I don't know, girls, boys, whatever, I do feel like I'm a success story and I never went to school.
Yeah. And I mean, and super successful, but also just like, I love your like tenacity and that just mentality, because it's inspiring, and it's not, you're not authoritarian, which is the like, I don't respond to that at all. And a lot of people don't. Some people do like to be like told in a line, but yours is more like, I can tell behind it is you want what's best for people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, your heart is like, okay, yeah, you're going to do this because I want what's best for you, but you have to put forth this effort because, and we were talking, you mentioned this a little bit about her daughter the other day. And can I tell you this? What she was
For
saying
sure.
about like, what you said about that she wanted to switch and do something else.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you tell that part.
She wants to be a high school cheerleader. Yeah. I was like, yeah, no, girl, that's not happening. But without saying that, right? Because she's a kid, and she's 11, and she's impressionable. So I was driving down the street, and I said, do you know who the Wildcats are? And she was like, no, is this a joke? And I was like, no, that is the cheer team Mommy was on. And she was like, oh. In Buffalo? I was like, yes, but we went to state and we won. And then we came to Dallas. And she was like, yeah, okay, Mom, whatever. And I go, I know, but like, my point is, from 25 to 45 is kind of really when you figure out really what you want in life, right? I said, I know you're 11 and everything seems to be super important this moment. But since you don't know who the Wildcats are, and I gave up dancing to be a Wildcat, I don't think you should be a cheerleader in high school. And she said, oh. And then I felt like I won. Like 2 weeks later, I heard her telling her friend on the phone, like the story. She was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to quit dancing, because if I quit dancing to be a cheerleader, and I'd have to quit because now you have to take your lessons super early in the morning, whatever. I just don't see myself as a long-term cheerleader, and I was like, oh,
But that's big vision
God.
to like
Yeah.
impart to somebody.
But it's hard, right? It's hard to explain. But like, I always try to bring it down to the level of like, do you know? Because then she's like, you're not just a mom. You're trying to give,
Yeah.
because, when you're a kid, you totally think your mom gives advice based on, I don't know what, like just because they want to be authoritarian.
Right,
You're
right. Not
right?
because their best interest of like, you're like, no, I'm seeing the future. And even I thought like, took piano for a little bit, quit, and I wish somebody would have been like, no, you're going to just keep doing this, because I was like, oh, because later I'm like, I want to be in a band, rock band, to do something, but now I can only play for Elise.
Yeah, well, now my son has just started a band. And he's 9, right?
I want to be your kid. I want to be your kid.
And it's so funny because I don't know anything about bands, right? But I met this incredible music teacher, and I was like, hey, you think you can get a boys band together? He was like, yeah, sure. I mean, this guy is unbelievable, right? So my son took lessons for 3 years and didn't really know how to play. So I was like, well, you're going to take lessons from this guy. You know, okay, Mom, whatever. So he come over and he said, can you play the Avengers? Can you play this? Can you play that? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, hang on. And he's played at Carnegie Hall, and he's young and fun and great. And a couple weeks in, my son plays the piano unbelievably. Like, I didn't even know he had it in him, right? And I'm like, oh my God, you're amazing. And he plays nonstop. He plays so much, it drives my daughter crazy. And she says, Mom, every time he walks by the piano, he plays it. I said, it's like when you're dancing, when you're talking. You know, it drives us crazy. She goes, oh, really? I go, yeah, you never stop doing that. So let him play as much as he wants. And, you know, out of the box, I was like, we're going to get a band formed, and we're having our second band rehearsal with a bunch of 9-year-olds.
Nice. That is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I love
so
it.
we're going to have a big concert. I mean, I shall invite you.
I would love to come.
After we get
I would love to
a few
come.
songs under our wing here.
I would love to come, and we are just like wrapping up to the end of this. Any other like last parting things you want to say to anybody before we go?
Believe in you.
That's brilliant.
You know, the only person you need to believe in is you. And you just have to figure out how to believe in you. You know, forget all the voices in your own head and forget all the outside voices. You know, I think if you just figure out like, where am I supposed to go and what is the meaning of this, you'll figure out where you're supposed to be.
Oh, I totally agree. And then you'll find your tribe of like, everybody is not for you, but you will find people for you.
Oh, for sure.
For
right?
sure, yeah.
Yes. And some of us, it takes longer. That's okay.
Right?
It's just still a journey. I mean, I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Right? And what's so cool is there's always time.
That's right. And forever. We're going to live forever, right?
Yeah, well, until we don't. But for all of you listening, so if you want to find Deanna in Salon Pompeo in Dallas, is in the Highland building.
Yes.
Highland
Highland Hotel.
Highland Hotel on Mockingbird and Central. But we're going to put everything in the show notes where you can follow also Deanna for her next steps, because I know something super awesome is going to happen, because you just have so much like to give people, and especially like just mentoring others.
Well, I hope so.
I got something going on. But for all of you listening, you know that there is always another way.